All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Mark Molina, CEO of Molina Leadership and Business Development Solutions. I am very excited today to have Melanie Daly and Ryan Andrea here on the show. With the advent of social media, time and distance are no longer barriers to meeting people, encountering professionals, and being able to engage people who are true experts in their field of endeavor that live in different parts of either your regional location across the US or across the world. And I'm excited that this interview is taking place with two highly skilled professionals all the way in Texas. And so I'm going to begin. This is from Bodyworx Fit. Melanie Daly is the owner and the lead coach, and she has Ryan Andrea with her, who is one of her strength coach, who has also been one of her clients over the years. Now I'm going to read their bios because we get a lot of information on the internet these days. We have a lot of people publishing articles on the internet these days, and not everyone is an expert. And it's important that if we're going to listen to what someone has to say, that they have the background, the training, the education, and the skill to make those what they believe are qualifying statements. And I believe these two high-powered women in front of us, these accomplished, educated women in front of us, have the necessary education and background to do that. So before we get into the full context of the conversation, I'm going to begin with Melanie. Melanie Daly is owner and lead coach of Bodyworx Fit, a comprehensive nutrition and fitness coaching company dedicated to empowering people of all ages to live fit and healthy lives by providing information, guidance, and individualized coaching. Melanie is first and foremost an educator and has over 20 years of experience in the fitness industry. In addition to certification in functional diagnostic nutrition, extensive training in human physiology, and she is a published author on the topic of coaching and the implementation of change. Melanie and her team treat health and fitness with a whole body, whole life approach. It's not just about hitting the gym every day. It is a combination of exercise, nutrition, stress reduction, mental, emotional well-being, and physiological health. The Bodyworx Fit team works by personalizing and customizing programs with clients based on their physique goals, their past and current health conditions, their lifestyle, and their idiosyncrasies, and we all have those. Everything is designed to guide clients through the information minefield shouting out from media and the web to break down the what, why, how, and when, and provide the knowledge and guidance needed to turn their life into one of ideal fitness, health, and longevity. A firm believer in walking her talk when it comes to living fit and healthy lifestyle, Melanie is also a professional natural bodybuilding competitor, achieving pro titles in 3 separate natural bodybuilding organizations over the last 10 years, and continuing to compete as she enters into her 5th decade around the sun. Love the 5th decade.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Ryan Andrea, strength coach, certified personal trainer, NASM. Ryan has been involved in fitness and athletics since she was a young child. The importance of healthy physical activity was instilled at the early age of 6 when she was encouraged to tag along with her distance running father in the early summer mornings. For Ryan, those experiences with her father, excuse me, and their running together instilled the belief that personal health and fitness is a lifelong journey. And her love for movement has followed her ever since, as an athlete throughout her school years and then as a coach of middle school athletics. A true educator, Ryan now uses her expertise as a teacher and coach to work with adults who want to improve their own physical fitness and strength. With a solid understanding of human anatomy and physiology and extensive experience in the weight room, Ryan teaches her clients how to enjoy movement while improving their physique, their health, and their overall well-being through exercise and fitness. Ryan, I bet you didn't know you did all that. Ladies.
It's the first I've heard of it.
Yeah.
She lies.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here today. Just one disclaimer is I was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, 101st Airborne with Melanie's husband, Grover Daly. in the mid 80s, early 80s, when we were both young men and had a lot of hair and were naturally quite thinner and faster and stronger than we are now. So we managed to run into each other on Facebook, Grover and I, a few months ago, and then I was able to meet his wife, and then impressed the very first time I saw the two of you on Bodyworx Fit with Melanie, and then the cup of coffee with the both of you. What impressed me the most was your sheer working knowledge of the total whole concept of the human existence. It wasn't just 3 servings of this, 2 servings of that. Drink 5 cups of water here. Go to bed earlier there. Not that those things aren't important, mind you, but the depth of understanding that the two of you had immediately captivated my attention. So with that said, Melanie, I will start with you. Tell us something about you that is not on this piece of paper.
Oh, wow, you put me on the spot. I am a proud mother of a Navy son who is currently stationed in Guam, but we're very proud military people, as you know, Mark. And so I am constantly just really trying to support our veterans and our active military as much as possible. That would probably be something I would share. Our favorite colors in this house are red, white, and blue.
Very good. Ryan, what about you? What's something that you want someone us to know that's not on this piece of paper?
You must know that I have a 10-pound Chihuahua, and I found her under a school bus about 4 years ago. She was 4 months old when I found her. I had no idea what to do with this dog. I took her home, and we've been together ever since.
Well, congratulations. Love it. Right?
It was.
Pet number is the best kind.
Yeah.
So Bodyworx Fit, what a total encompassing. Let me say something here real quick. This whole concept, the military moved before I got out in 95, the previous years had moved to what's called the total soldier concept. Fitness, appearance, counseling, professional development, personal development. They began to take what was called the total soldier concept. Before, you could just show up. If somebody liked you, they promote you. Then it got so competitive that they had to stop all of that and develop a legitimate promotion process. And so when I was reading about what your total concept, that made me go back in my mind and remember that moment, that there's legitimacy to what we should be doing. It can't be arbitrary, especially in health and fitness. So Melanie, I'll start with you. Bodyworx Fit. Talk about your vision. Talk about your goals to help your clients.
Sure. When I first started, it was really very important to me to make sure it was whole body, because a lot of what my experience has been, I've been kind of a pseudo athlete most of my life. And I say pseudo because I've had my own body image issues and, kind of not really always the athlete kind of person, but wanting to be so much more. And it really became more of, it was not just eat broccoli, every day. It's really this very whole body approach. And so I had received some training on certainly the personal training, but also on heart rate and maximum heart rate. And then I had kind of moved into the nutrition background of that. And it really was because it was just it's a big picture piece. You can't, I tell everybody every day, we can't work with just one arm of that, because your body is a very whole, interdependent, fascinating machine. And it requires all kinds of moving parts to make it work and to make it as healthy as possible. So Bodyworx Fit for me really was an opportunity to really communicate that to everybody, that it's not just go run your 30 minutes every day or eat your broccoli. It really is a combination of things, and that everybody's body really is so individualized that there's very little that we can just mass produce and say X, Y, and Z are going to work for everybody, because that's not the case. We are just such unique creatures, and each body is so unique and individualized that we really have to approach health and fitness in general with that very unique individualized kind of approach. And it requires looking at everything. And, you know, we're impacted not only internally, but things we're impacted externally about. And it's just a matter of trying to pull all that together. That's where that Bodyworx Fit came together. If you look very closely at my logo, you'll see that it's actually gears in the center of it, because it really is. Did you not know that?
Of course I knew that.
I know, she knew that, but it's like cogs in a watch, right? It's a very intricate, delicate process, and one, you know, they're kind of working with synergistically with each other, and so you have to make sure all of those cogs are oiled and, you know, getting what they need. And if one goes off kilter, it throws off the whole machine. And so that's how I think of everybody's kind of uniqueness, and the body and the approach that we take is making sure that everything is really connected and supported the way it needs to be, specific to you as an individual.
Very good. Now, Ryan, you have been participating with Bodyworx for some time, for a few years now. What was it about Melanie's vision, philosophy, practices, and disciplines that drew you to this wanting to be involved with the mission of Bodyworx Fit itself?
So we've been together, let's say 5 years, and before, flat out, she made me eat right. That's the simple answer. She made me eat right. I played soccer in college, and that was at 19, 20, 21. And now at 39, I have a better body than I did at 20, 21. And it was the nutrition. And people always say, well, you've always been an athlete. You know, you've always been active. So you don't understand what it's like to be sedentary. And it's like, no, the body really didn't change. The physique that I was looking for really didn't come until we paired nutrition with the weightlifting. I had always lifted in the gym. As a soccer player, you have to lift, you have to do some form of strength training, but no one really monitored our food intake, because we're young and you lift and you run some sprints and the weight falls off, right? But the physique really wasn't there. If you look at a soccer player, they're just flat. And I wanted to actually change my physique. I knew what I wanted to see. And so that's where I reached out to Melanie, and I said, okay, I know the weight room, I know the gym, I know that part, but something's not right. And so once she, like you were saying, this whole approach, put the nutrition into it, then I was very happy when I looked in the mirror.
So the Bodyworx Fit team specializes in complete body transformation and lifestyle change, in-depth functional diagnostic lab testing and recommendations for health, coaching for those with significant weight to lose, physique competition preparation programs for men and women, online training, coaching, and nutritional guidance, customized nutrition protocols for individuals and families, living lean nutrition seminars and coaching, weight loss challenges, corporate and private and corporate boot camps, one-on-one and small group personal training, sports-specific training, and conditioning programs. That is a lot of areas of service. And so there's a lot of knowledge about health and nutrition, the things that are mentioned here in your bio, Melanie: functional diagnostic nutrition, extensive training in human physiology. And you're a published author on the topic of coaching and the implementation of change. And both of you glow when I watch you. When you're talking, there's this energy, there's this sense of purpose, the sense of you're engaged with who you are, you're engaged with what you're doing. It's not an idle conversation. You are modeling what you truly believe. So talk to us a little bit about, because anybody who's going to watch this here, even on the West Coast, is going to have the option of reaching out to you, hiring you. Let's say you have a corporate, let's say you have a family. A family comes in, we all want to lose weight. How do you begin that process, Melanie? We'll start with you, and then we'll go to Ryan.
Oh, that's great. Well, I will say, just as a caveat, kind of on an aside, given where we are in the world today, Bodyworx Fit, we've actually been providing online and virtual coaching for almost 10 years now. So it's not new to us in how we go about reaching out. I have clients who are not only all over the country, but even spread across the world. And the technology today that we have available to us, we've all experienced a lot more of that in the last couple of months, but it's there for us to really have these kinds of connections. And that's how we do most of our work. Yes, we are local and we have some local people and one-on-ones, and we love that too. But there's the reason I went online is to be able to reach more people. There's a lot of people who need and want to make really positive changes in their health and in their fitness. And I love what I do. I know Ryan loves what she does. That's why she's my mini me. That's how I refer to her. Because I love hearing that you see that in our conversation, because I really think we are very passionate about our purpose and what we do. And it is important for us to walk our talk. And everything that you just listed on there, Mark, is our experiences that we bring to you and whomever it is that we work with. And so when we have somebody that reaches out, like let's say this family who wants to make some real positive changes, the first thing that we do, honestly, is have some conversation, just like we are right now, about where are you right now and where do you want to go? That's my baseline. What have you tried in the past? Just kind of a getting to know you piece, because this is, when it really boils down to it, it's a coaching dynamic. And I like to have this kind of face-to-face conversation at least once, but more regularly preferred, because I want to make sure it's a good fit. You go to the military, right? You remember there were some of those instructors that you really didn't care for, right? And you were going to kind of buck up against whatever it was that they wanted you to do. But then there are other people who you really jive with, and you're like, yeah, they're motivating and they're inspiring, and I would do what they tell me to do. Okay. So that's what we look for first, is to make sure that when we have this face-to-face kind of conversation, that this is going to be a good working relationship. Okay. Because we are asking you to do some change, and change is hard, and it's a process. So you have to be able to know that your coach, the person that you're working with, is there on your side, and you appreciate them for what they have to offer. You want to do, you see the importance of what it is that you're doing, and that you're feeling like you're learning in the process too. Those are all super important to us. So that's really first step. And then once we determine that this is a good working relationship, then I actually take in some pretty comprehensive intake information. I want to know if this is the case of a family or an individual. I need to know the health history. I need to know your background. I need to know what you've done up to this point, what you haven't done up to this point. I want to know what some of the challenges are, because all of those things, based on where you've been, let's say if it's an individual for the last 40 years of your life, I kind of need to know. Because remember what we talked about earlier, it's all very unique and individualized to you. So I need to know what you've been through in the last 40 years. What has your body been through? Because that's going to help me really design the most appropriate plan, nutritionally speaking, exercise-wise, all of that with regard to where you are and where you want to go with your goals.
Very good. So Ryan, you said you went to Melanie. She changed your diet, changed your physique. With that experience, what you know now from working with her, and someone came to you needing help, how would you approach that?
That's a great question. I think I would do a lot of the things that she's taught me to do. Ask questions. Ask why. Why do you want to change your physique? What kind of things are you doing now? We ask a lot of questions, and now she was talking about the comprehensive form. I think our form is like 8 or 9 pages. And in this form, we ask our clients things like, how well do you sleep? And I remember the first time she asked me how am I sleeping? I'm like, why aren't we just load the plates and let's squat? And it's like, oh no, sleep is a part of your recovery. If you're only sleeping 2 hours a night, then it probably is not in my best interest as your coach. Remember, going back to the dynamic, to recommend that you're in the gym 6 days a week starting out, even though that's what I want you to do, but that may not be best for you if you're only sleeping 2 hours a night. So I think it's getting a lot of information, and sometimes it feels like it's too much, but it does help. The too much information does help us make more informed decisions about the kind of programming that we're going to ask someone to implement on a daily basis.
So 8 or 9 pages, that's quite the intake, very thorough, very thoughtful, I'm sure. Let's talk a little bit. You just touched on something. I don't know how, Melanie, how Grover is. And my father was retired military, 2 wars, 3 tours of combat. He had severe PTSD. They didn't call it PTSD back then. It was just, it was what it was. Mm-hmm. But he would stalk the house at night. He'd stalk the yard, you know, after all that combat. And sometimes we'd wake up and as a little boy, I'd 5, 6, 7, I'd wake up and he'd be standing in my room looking out the window, not just look at his gaze, right? And so all my family members, we have sleep issues. All my brothers are veterans. One of my sisters is a veteran. We all have sleeping issues. And I didn't realize until I started ran a couple of marathons and attempted some ultra marathons and had a little success in that, how much my inability to sleep just had a massive negative impact on my ability to perform. Can we talk about sleep issues a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, sleep is your body's time to recover. That's basically its primary purpose. It's rest and recovery. And so you can imagine, you know, the body is this amazing machine, like I mentioned before, and it has a really important job. It's, you know, keeping the heart pumping and the lungs breathing and the kidneys functioning and your entire system working. It does that while you're awake and moving and thinking during the day. So the evening time when you're actually at rest, it actually gets more done. Okay, so that recovery, regardless of, you know, if it's the heart and lungs or if it's muscle recovery, all of it happens at night. And so when you are interrupted or when you're not getting quality sleep, your entire system is being affected. It's not just your recovery from your 3-mile run earlier that day or the hour you spent in the gym. It's kind of behind the 8 ball in a sense on all recovery. You know, everything, what's going on in your gut, what's going on in your detox system, what's going on in your immune system, all your nervous system, all of those things are affected because you're not getting the rest that it needs to do its most important work. So that's why when we talk about sleep, and I know we've done a couple of our Facebook Lives like that, people push it off, you know, oh, I can get by on 4 hours of sleep. I'm fine. Well, you may feel fine up here, right? But the body is kind of in crisis. And the body works, we talk about this like on a triage kind of system. Okay. So there are really important things that need to be done, like the heart pumping and the lungs breathing and the kidneys functioning. Those things are really important. If you're already in a deficit when it comes to energy, the capability of doing that, then that's all the body can really work on. So things like fat loss or muscle recovery or thinking right, okay, those are all kind of shelved a little bit because your body has limited energy source to deal with the most important things, the triage of keeping you alive. Okay. And all the other things kind of become secondary, you know, that come down the route, the totem pole, I guess, of importance, right? And so that's why we see, you know, people who are getting sick maybe and getting injured and not losing the weight they think they should. And all of this stuff is probably, we need to take a look at what's happening at night when your body should be in that recovery mode. You may not be giving it enough time to do that. That's a huge, huge part of the importance of sleep.
I have something just to add about sleep. In our the precision nutrition materials, it talks about the different kinds of clients, level 1, level 2, level 3 clients. And basically that means how often they work out, what their goals are, professional athlete. And I remember reading somewhere like on the level 3 client, which is 6 days a week of working out, trying to maintain leanness, it said in addition to your 8 hours of sleep at night, you should be having an 1.5 to 2 hour nap in the middle of the day. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, I work out 6 days a week and I'm not napping midday. I should be getting even more sleep than I'm getting. So like she's saying, the other activities get shelved when you're not having enough sleep. And then you go work out on top of it. You're really putting your body at stress and crisis.
And I would say too, just to add on to that, I think she touched on a point, and that was that individuality. Okay, that not everybody is there, and that's one of those things. That's why my intake forms are as long as they are. That's why I spend that time in conversation with you, just in having about whether or not this is a coaching dynamic we want to move forward on, because I need to know where you are. You may be just, you're not a workout at the gym 6 hours a week elite athlete. That's cool. You're the stay-at-home mom. You've got 3 kids, and you're trying to run a business on the side. That's a whole different dynamic and lifestyle, right? And you're working out in the garage when the baby is napping. Okay. All that's you have different needs. And so whether it's sleep or nutrition or everything that we look at, I have to take that into context. Because your needs at that level are going to be different than this elite athlete who might, have a completely different lifestyle. And so that's the fun part, but it's also the tricky part. That's why it's really hard to make a blanket statement. Do we all need about 8 hours of sleep a night? Yes, we do. But depending on where your demands are and what kind of stresses are in your life and what kind of physical stresses you're under, whether it's in the gym or toting around 3 kids, right? We have to take that into context and make an appropriate plan for you that gives you that kind of recovery that's optimal for you and where you are and where you're trying to go when it comes to your health.
I think that goes back to what we said at the beginning, and it's in both of our bios as being educators at heart. When you're an educator at heart, you want to educate on the reasons why this plan is not going to work for a mom with 3 kids, and this plan isn't going to work for you as a marathon runner. We would not give these 3 people the same plan. That's education, and educating the individual client about why.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, ladies, around the individual plans. We're not all the same. We're not all going to look the same. It's not going to be the same. During this time of COVID, everything shut down. People were shutting down. I put on some pounds I didn't otherwise have. And I want us to talk a little bit about that here in just a second, about the stresses, what it does to the body, what people should probably know that they might not know. But now that we're coming out of this, these quarantine and the stresses are starting to lift a little bit, I'm feeling more invigorated. I'm training for a half marathon right now. So I'm starting to feel more alive, right? Let's talk a little bit about the stress on the body. You talked about how it affects weight gain. Is it true that our cortisol levels rise and we gain weight? Is that a true statement? Is that a legitimate statement? And if it's not, what really goes on in some of the things in our bodies that will keep us, besides sleep and nutrition, when we're under a great deal of stress? What is happening that might prevent us from losing weight, and what might be a couple of ways to attack that?
Gosh, that's huge. How much time do we have, Mark? Yes. Okay. So when it comes to stress, absolutely. It's important first for me to clarify that there are multiple ways the body is stressed. Okay. And frequently, most of us think of stress as the mental emotional stress. Because we all know, we all live in a stressful lifestyle. We are running the kids around, and now we're shut down and we're teaching from home, and we've got to work from home, and we've got the pressures of the deadline, and whether or not I'm going to have a job next week. Those are all super crazy stresses. They are definitely mental and emotional stresses that have significant impact on the body. But I want you to also consider that there are other stressors in the body that are more physiological, could be environmental, combination of things. Okay, so stress for the body comes from multiple areas. And like I said, we think about it mostly mentally, emotionally. I think what you're referring to, especially with the COVID in the last few months, is there's a lot of mental, emotional stress, and not just COVID. There's, just life going on, and things that are not great, and we're trying to deal with all of that. There's always going to be mental, emotional stress. And so sometimes you're right, sometimes it spikes, and other times it's not as bad. We kind of go through cycles. To address the cortisol, yes, one of the body's ways of responding to stressors is to increase cortisol. And so when I say stressors, I want to be clear, could it be a mental, emotional? Yeah, it absolutely could. But it could also be an injury. It could also be parasites or toxins in your digestive system. Okay, it could be immune issues. Okay, it could be toxins like mold or exposure to some things that we don't even really think about, but your body is under a load of stress. Okay, one of the responses is an increase in cortisol. I remember the commercials too about, all that, and you're going to have the big cortisol spike and you're going to gain all this weight and then you can't get rid of it. It's not only cortisol. Cortisol can be very high and can rev very high, and we don't really want it to. It's a part of the fight or flight response system that the body has. Ideally, you respond and then you dial back down. The problem with today's society is that we respond and that stays elevated over a longer period of time. So your body never has that drop down, that recovery time. Okay, so interesting that we should speak about sleep earlier, because ideally sleep is one of those times to try to bring those levels back down and allow your body to rest and recover. Okay, so here you go. There's a correlation already. If you're not getting the kind of sleep that you need, that restful, deep sleep, then you're never allowing your body to come down from those high levels of stress and recover the way it needs to. Okay, so there's that. Does it also prevent weight loss? Yes, it absolutely can. But I'm going to tell you, it's not just cortisol factoring in on that. It kind of goes back to that triage approach with the body that I mentioned earlier, that if your body is under a certain amount of attack from stress, mental, emotional, physiological, environmental, toxin, detox, digestion, all kinds of stuff going on in the body, things, those cogs of the wheel that may not be quite fitting together, those are internal stressors on the body that it has to deal with and resolve on a minute-to-minute basis just to keep you functioning. Okay, so if the functioning, the heart pumping, the brain thinking, the lungs breathing, the digestive system working, those are priorities. And so things like fat loss are way down on that priority level, okay, because the body is under attack by all these other stressors right now. So something like fat is just kind of pushed to the side. Okay, now here's another thing about fat. Fat is actually your body's way of protecting itself from what it sees as toxic. Okay, so let's say we're going to take mental, emotional out of that for a minute, and say you have some digestive issues, or you might have some parasites. We all have some, or you might have some immune system issues, things that aren't working quite right. Your body, or environmental, let's go there, shall we, with like chemicals. And the last time you stood at the gas pump and you were putting gas in your car and you smelled those chemicals, right? Those are toxic to the body. You inhaled that. Now it's the body's response to try to get it away from all of your important organs, okay? One of the ways the body does that is it coats all these little toxic things with fat and pushes them off to the side. We'll deal with it later. Okay, and so you've got this resistant kind of fat because you're never out of crisis mode. Then it will never get to where we can deal with those fat cells and deal with that fat storage, because we're always trying to deal with the latest crisis. Does that help?
Yeah, no, it does. Ryan, anything you want to add?
No, that was good. I'll let her have it on that one.
The reason why I wanted to have a little bit of focused conversation on that is because all of our bodies are have been responding to this stress, and we don't, there's so much information, and it's hard to, just do a few more push-ups, do a few more sit-ups, drink a little bit more water, everything's going to be okay, run a little bit longer, it's all going to go away. And then let's just say you do all those things and it doesn't go away, then you're really disappointed.
Yeah.
Right?
And let me just say too, cortisol, like I said, is just one of them. When I talk about the individuality of the person, I mean also where you are in your life stages. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because Mark, you know as well as I do, I'm 51 years old, and I know that my body sure as heck doesn't respond to the same kinds of exercise or food that it did the same way now that it did when I was 30. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so everybody has, that's where I said that history of the body. You have to factor that in. Men are different from women. And regardless, you and I might be the same age, but we have two bodies, male and female, go through things a little differently. And hormones have a big thing to do with that, not just for women, but also for men. You are in a different stage of life. And so some of the things that you hear about, if you just, do an extra HIIT workout 3 times a week, right? Or drop, 1,000 calories, that'll do it. Oh my gosh, no, it won't. Okay, you're actually going to be creating more stress on your body in most cases, which is counter effective to what it is that you're trying to do. And that's where some of that really, let's take a close look at where you are individually and figure out a good plan, because you're right. There are too many factors to look at to just say, I'm going to add a couple extra HIIT workouts this week and I should drop an extra 5 pounds over the next month. It doesn't work that way. And sometimes it actually works against you.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to speak to what you were saying about how the industry says do more, do an extra push-up, do an extra sit-up, how you just mentioned do an extra HIIT workout. Mm-hmm. But then I can speak to myself, Melanie having a plan for me, and she will actually take something away and say, how about we don't do that anymore? How about instead of adding a 6th day, how about you go only 5 days and you go to do restorative yoga? And then to see how in the coming weeks, okay, maybe I was revving, how you say, revving a little too high, and then 5 pounds fall off with doing yoga. Instead of adding an extra day of 30-minute HIIT, let's go crazy, let's sweat, let's do more. Actually, my body needed the reverse. It needed the rest. Yeah.
And let me just say too, that one of the things that I really think is so important about what we do, and that is that you cannot monitor what you don't measure. Okay. So when I say to her, you need to dial that back, and instead of 5 days, I'm going to have you go 3 days and take a yoga class. Well, that's because we're seeing certain things happen or not happen with her physique in response to where we're trying to go. Okay. And so the only way we can see that is to measure on a very consistent basis. When we do that, it gives us some perspective. I always describe myself a little bit like a geek when it comes to the data, because the more data, and you just finished your degree, so I know you understand this, right? Qualitative and quantitative data. There are both kinds, not only in research, but also in the human body and what we want it to do, where it is right now. Okay. So quantitatively, I want measurements. Head to toe circumference measurements. Yes, I want to see the scale weight, but it's not an end all be all. And I want to see pictures, okay? Because pictures allow us to step back and take a little bit more objective perspective and say, oh, well, here's month 1 and here's month 2 and here's month 3. And look, I went from 3 bulges on my back to 1, right? You don't see that when you step in the shower in the morning. All you see is that there's still a bulge, right? But you don't. So sometimes taking that step back and using that as a method of measurement to monitor your progress, that's kind of the quantitative aspect of that I ask everybody to do that I work with. And then the qualitative piece is something like the sleep. Is the energy level, is the digestion, right? How are you having a bowel movement every day? We talk about poo a lot, it seems like, on our Facebook Lives, but it's part of the body's functioning, right? Those are those qualitative measures that are giving me some information. So in her case, and she had actually, in this example, she had been rear-ended and she'd had a concussion. She was recovering from a concussion. And once we got her through that, we still had to be attentive to what her body was telling us in that data about how it was responding, and that kind of nuancing the demand versus the rest and the recovery, and figuring out where her sweet spot was at that moment. Okay. Now that's going to be different 2 years later.
Sure.
Okay. Because she's going to be in a different place 2 years later. But that's why that data and that constant assessment is so important. We don't just make decisions kind of willy-nilly. Oh, yoga sounds good, let's do that.
And I would say it speaks to the coaching dynamic also. Whatever client is out there, that you have to have the dynamic, because I would never imagine in 100 years my bodybuilding coach would tell me to go take yoga. Had anybody else said that, I would say absolutely not. That's not what I do. But I trusted, because of the dynamic and the established relationship, that with the data, the qualitative, the quantitative, with all the information on the intake form that I had given, that this was something that I needed to do. And so it's the same way how you asked me at the very beginning, how would I approach that with the client? It's the same way. It's the dynamic.
We pay attention. Yeah.
So I watched this show on Netflix one time. It was called From Fat to Finish. And it was about, I don't know if you ladies have seen that, about a group of runners who collectively, I think they lost 200 pounds, a group of individuals who lost 200 pounds and decided to run one of those Ragnar races. You know what those are?
Mm-hmm.
And how they each told their story, and they were all in different places, different phases. Some had a great deal of success over several months. Some were still struggling to get the success that they wanted, but they were all still out there engaging, not giving up, and they finished that race together. And it really struck me because let's just say that I would be your client. It would be easy for me. I'm 56 now, and I definitely cannot run at the speed and the pace I could when I was 25. But I can sure run a lot further than I could ever run when I was in the Army. My body's different. My diet's not as good, whatever. Things that matter to me, but things that I'm working on. How important is it in the coaching relationship to help people just navigate that psychological process if they're just not getting where they want to go as fast as they had hoped? Melanie, I'll start with you.
Do you want me to go there?
Yes, go. Yeah.
Okay. So it never happens as fast as we want
Never.
it. Ever. And that's why we've become the kind of society that we have, where, we're going to pop a pill or do a 3-day fast or do something, and just, we want it to happen quickly. We do. The body doesn't respond that quickly. And even if it did, and I'm not familiar with that particular show, Mark, but when you see people who make a significant amount of weight loss over a quick period of time, usually through pretty drastic reduction of calories and increased calorie expenditure through exercise, something like that, it's still, I've had clients who tell me to this day, I have this number in my head that I want to get to this weight. And when they get to that weight and they're looking in the mirror and they're kind of like, yeah, that doesn't really look the way I thought it would at that weight. Okay. So while it happened, it wasn't quite what they pictured. And it just takes time. It's kind of like marrying the two is tricky. And you are so correct. In a lot of the coaching that we do, it's that accountability, yes, but also the support for the work that you're doing. It's one step closer. Every single workout, every single meal, every single conversation that you have in your head, much less you might have with your best friend, right? About where you're going and the consistent application of that. That's a big part of the coaching dynamic, I think, too. And social support is important. I can imagine, I'm not sure if that movie, but you see a lot more success sometimes when people work in groups, or when you when you did your first marathon, you told as many people as possible, right? Because they're helping you to stay accountable to the work that it's going to take to get you to that goal. And so that's really important in coaching, is continuing to revisit the goal, but also to continue to revisit all of the celebrations and the victories. I actually had a client just this morning who came in with these 2 big posters that she had just written down. It was probably 14 different things that she had accomplished, her non-scale victories,
Yes.
things that she had accomplished in the last year that we've worked together. And she still has some work to do. Okay. But we have to revisit all of those successes, because that's what keeps us motivated. Of course we want it tomorrow. I want it tomorrow too. Okay. And, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. So it's consistent implementation. And that's where I think the social support is really important. The coaching support is important. Continuing to push a little bit for that new growth and change and progress towards the goal, but also support and hold and celebrate what you've done. I know when I switch out a weight, when I put extra plates on the bar, right, for Ryan or anybody, I know that she's never lifted that weight before, right? And I make sure I tell her that afterwards. I'll let her do it, right? And then be like, that's a new PR for you, a personal record. That's you. Think about where you started. When she first started with me, I have those
you
notes.
have proof.
I do. And even now she laughs at it. It's like, oh, it's like baby weights. But everybody has the baby steps. And sometimes you need that, you need some kind of support system. And like I said, the coaching dynamic is part of what we love about that, is calling that out for people, because it's really easy to get like this and get frustrated when you're trying to do it on your own. But when you have people to support you and to coach you through that process, we're going to celebrate and push at the same time.
Ryan, anything you want to add to that?
I think the only thing I want to add, you mentioned not getting it as fast as you want. And then with the non-scale victories, she knows I will work very hard. I say I'm a kindergartner and I need a sticky chart. I work so hard to get a sticker on my calendar. And it's that simple for me. It's that simple. When I look at my calendar and I see a hole where I see Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but there's nothing on Tuesday, that means next week there has to be something on Tuesday. And so it's not about getting it fast. Sometimes you have to slow down and say, I did it today. I remember even this week, I went to the gym. I was sitting in the parking lot and I said to myself, you're sitting in the parking lot, get out of the car and open the door and walk in. Okay. That was those 30 seconds. That was a big deal. It wasn't about the building muscle today. It was about opening the gym door. Just go swipe your key fob. Okay. Then I got in there and took my stuff off and changed my gloves. So it's not always, got to get there fast. It's, did I do what I was supposed to do today? And the answer is yes. I got my star. I walked in.
It's consistency, and I know we've talked about that on our Facebook Lives quite a bit. It always comes back around to that. The body is going to respond to consistency. And when you talk about being a data geek and monitoring what you measure, well, that's consistency too, right? You have to you have to say you've implemented it in order to watch what it did. Yeah. And that's the gold star or the sticky chart. And we all have those days. I've had a lot of those days in the last couple of weeks where I'm like, okay, Melanie, right? Just get out there and start moving. And because it's not easy, but the consistency is when the body starts to respond. And so if you can just rely on that and then monitor your progress in that same context, things will happen in the direction that you want them to happen. I think we're just so kind of looking for the magic pill. We hop from one thing to another thing, and we don't give it time to settle in and to be consistent. And, the body's a super smart machine. I say that all the time. And you have to just implement it, allow it to rely on that, consistently approach it, and then step back and say, how is that working for me? And then make tiny little adjustment if you need to continue your forward progress. Okay. It can never be a buckshot approach. You can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, that's not working, and here's a whole new bath and a whole new suds and a whole new baby, right? And we're going to try this for 3 days. And oh, guess what? After 3 days, it's still not working. We're going to throw that out too and start something new. You can't do that. You have to be consistent. You have to make your sticker chart if that's what it takes. I have colored pens, whatever that is. I tick off my little boxes. Make sure that you have a system to be consistent in your implementation, because that's when you start to see the change.
That's a good point. A system, having a system to be consistent, a system to help yourself be successful.
Yep.
That's important.
Yep. Not everybody needs the stickers. I went through stickers and I went through colored pens. Now I have little tick boxes that I check off, kind of depends on my mood, whatever. Right. But find something that works for you. When I was running marathons, Mark, and I had my entire training plans sketched out on a calendar kind of system, and I just big red X every time I'd come in from getting that 3 mile or 6 mile or 8 mile, whatever it was, put my big red X on there and gave myself a pat on the back because I got it done. I marked it off. It was visual, and I was that much closer to my goal. And so I think that's important.
Now, when I ran my first marathon, I was 47, and I hadn't run for 13 years because of a lower leg injury. And then when I really got that running bug, and I started reading, trying to learn more about that requirement. And then I learned in some of the books that I read, and I bought and read a lot of books. If you're starting a training cycle, that's not the time to try to start losing weight, because you're going to lose strength. If you're going to go into a cycle of weight loss, you should do that in off season. I say that to ask this next question. How relevant is that as you work with your clients, explaining that type of, if it's for performance, if it's for weight loss, because you do a lot of coaching for natural bodybuilders. How important is that concept of what am I training for, and how should my diet mirror that in your coaching?
Okay, that is the $1 million question right there. That's why we start with that conversation about what's the goal. Okay, because you're right, those two are two different things. Okay, so when somebody goes through competition prep and they come to me and they say, this is where I'm at, and in 20 weeks I want to hit the stage in this division, I say, okay, this is what we need to do. In most cases, we have to lean out. Okay, because when you go into prep, you're getting stage lean, which is not necessarily a place you can live. And it's also not a place where you can build a lot of extra muscle. So when somebody comes to me like that, and says, I'm going to do a show in 4 months or whatever, then we're basing it on whatever muscle they already have, because we're going to spend the next several months kind of chiseling away at that top layer to really display the shape that they've already got. But you cannot be in that place for stage and expect to build more muscle. It doesn't work that way. You really do have to be clear on what your goals are, because you are correct. In my case, for competition, for example, a lot of my training techniques for people don't change if they're building or if they're leaning out. What does change is the food, and how they're fueling their body and how much energy they're expending. So the weight training aspect of that very rarely changes when it comes to wherever you are in the calendar, right? But what happens is what I call the energy in and the energy out. That's when you start to shift. That is, for example, like you said, when you're doing your marathon training, in the beginning, you're just getting miles under your feet. You just need to be able to fuel yourself to continue to grow, the mile base that you need to be comfortable and finish your race successfully. So that's not necessarily the time to start cutting all your calories and doing extra workouts on the side, okay? Because you're asking your body to go through too many different demands. So there is absolutely a point in time for both, and you are absolutely correct. It really depends on the goal, and that goal can change 3 months out, 6 months out, what have you. Sometimes we have people who are in that space where they need to lose some extra weight.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can use me as an example. I'm fine with that. I'll still use myself. You can go for it.
there maybe it's the COVID-19 that you put on, right? Okay, and so you have a little bit to lose, but you still want to be building. You can do that to a point, and that has a lot to do with the calories in and calories out. How much food are you taking? What kind of cardio are you doing? But there is a point of diminishing returns. When your calorie expenditure and your calorie deficit gets a little bit lower, then the muscle building is kind of stalled, okay? Because now the body's really concentrating on maintaining the muscle you've already got while lowering the levels of fat potentially to like a competition level, right? But Ryan, you can speak for yourself. She's going to tell you that she's at a place where she's got some of the COVID-19 to lose, but she's also building. She's not going to be stage lean this year. That's not the goal. She's creating shape. And so we're kind of doing this little dance right now of getting just enough calorie expenditure to help her lose a little bit of that extra 19. And at the same time, feeding her enough that she continues to grow the muscle shape that she wants so she can compete next year. And so she loves that shape.
And I'll say that how you were talking about, at what point those two things can't live in the same place. For me, I was only 10. It was not 19, by the way. Okay. It was only 10. But we've been working on this same 10, it goes back to cortisol, goes back to sleep, goes back to stress. In this last 10 weeks is 10. But at the same time, for me, I would prefer to get rid of the 10 before I go into actual competition prep, because I've experienced competition prep before. And I know that those two things for me cannot live in the same place. To lose 10 pounds and then have to completely shift my diet and start outsourcing my responsibilities of life so that I can prepare for a competition. So you really have to be clear about what you want to do, right? What is that goal? What's the first goal right now?
Okay, very good.
Can I just say one extra thing on that too? Because I don't want to give the wrong picture. In many cases, what I encounter, what we encounter is a lot of times people are actually under eating. And so when I work with people, I always tell them, it sounds ridiculous, but it works. I want you eating as much as possible while still making progress towards your goals. Okay. And so what seems so counterintuitive for a lot of people is you might have this 10 pounds to lose, but I'm actually going to be feeding you more than you are currently eating. Well, why is that? First of all, it's what I call your metabolic fires, right? If you are under eating, your metabolic fires are on like this low simmer at all times because it's hardly getting enough fuel to just go through the important work of keeping your body alive, okay? And so we have to retrain your body to kind of stoke up those fires throughout the course of the day, which revs up your metabolism on a more continual basis, which means that calorically, you're actually going to be feeding your body more and getting the better response that you want, which might be at this point, fat loss, So women are terrible about this, but guys, you are too. It's the right amount of calories, but also where those calories are coming from. The proteins, the fats, and the carbs, those healthy macronutrients. Of course, I'm going to tell you no junk foods and processed foods and alcohol and ice cream and all this stuff. We all know that, right? But everybody is kind of dials in specifically in that right balance of proteins, carbs, and fats for everybody to respond based on the demands of your body and your system and your exercise, but also metabolically speaking, where you need to be calorically, but also where that nuanced balance is. Ryan can eat a whole lot more carbs than I can just because I don't process them as well. Okay. I get super fluffy if I get too high in my carbs. My body's a little happier when I keep it lower. Now I'm not talking crazy low, but I mean lower. I have some people who, what was your top over the winter?
Oh, 280.
She was 280 grams of carbs a day. Okay, I would be the Michelin man if I ate that. Okay, so, but metabolically, that's where her body was so receptive to that, and we were seeing the growth and the change that we wanted to see. So, again, I kind of went on a little side note there, but when it comes to calories, and it's not always about less and less and less. It's not always about more activity and eating less. It's really about finding the right balance for you and where your body is right now and where you want to go.
Very good. Well, excuse me. I hope we'll get a chance to come back and have some more dialogue. And I have a lot of other issues I want to speak to you about. We're at an hour now, and I want to try to honor your guys' time as well. In closing, Ryan, I'll start with you. Any words of encouragement, any counsel to someone who's out there struggling right now, trying to get back on track with their fitness level, regardless of what area that might be? Any words of encouragement?
I would say keep going as my first advice. Keep going. And then second, and this is something I had to do coming out of COVID-19, is use the power of like visualization. Think about what you want to see when you look in the mirror. That is so powerful for me to keep going. And I say, okay, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. But keep that picture strong in your mind. And if you don't have one, create it. Put it in your mind, what it is you want to see, what kind of life you want to have. You know, me personally, you know, I like to walk in a room and the room get quiet. That's what I like. When I walk in the room, it gets quiet. Well, here lately, the room hasn't been getting quiet. Okay, so I got some work to do, you know, so just keep that vision in your mind.
What about you, Melanie? Any words of encouragement you'd like to share or extend to someone we're coming out of COVID-19 and they're struggling getting their mental mindset back?
Yes. I'm going to repeat what I said earlier today in our Facebook, and that is healthcare is self-care. And you are worth it. In order to do whatever it is that you want to do and support the people that you love and take the adventures and do the things, you have that capability and you absolutely are worth it. So don't cut yourself short. Take that time to maybe do some introspection and do some goal setting and put that vision out there. Yeah, we're going to have a vision board exercise next week with a little group of us here for that very purpose. Let's set some of those short-term and long-term goals, create the pictures, but don't forget to monitor your own progress. Like, even if that means, if you have a physique kind of goal, and if that means you're standing in your closet, you put your phone on self-timer and you take your own quiet pictures of yourself and hide them away somewhere, do it. Do it. And save it in its own little album, and then do it again. Do it again in a couple weeks, and then do it again in a couple more weeks, and then start to make a little collage and put it together. And every time, give yourself a pat on the back, because you are your own worst critic. Okay. And so I want you to know there are people out there who support you and love you, and you are worth it. You can absolutely make it happen. I'm a firm believer of that. And if that means reaching out for some help or some support, do it. There is no weakness in that. We work together socially. So just believe in yourself, and that taking care of yourself is a really important work and important for all of us, regardless of where you are.
I like that. Healthcare is self-care. That's very good. Melanie, if someone wants to get a hold of you guys at Bodyworx Fit, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, you can find us on Facebook under Bodyworx Fit. It's Bodyworx with an X, so BODYWORX FIT. That's also at bodyworxfit.com. You can find me there. There's a website. We have contact information. All of my information is there at bodyworxfit.com. You can even look up my name, Melanie Daly. You can find me online. So it's pretty easy to find me. Daly is with no I, though. No I in Daily, at least not this one. So yeah, reach out at any time. We do a Facebook Live Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 12:30 Central Time. Love to see some of your viewers on there. And if you do come and join us, it's called Cuddle in a Cup. And we're just giving a cuddle to the community. If you do join us, make sure you say hello in the comment box, because we love to see everybody there online with us.
Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had with us this afternoon Melanie Daly, owner of Bodyworx Fit, with her right hand, Ryan Andrea, Double Trouble, Cuddle in a Cup. Next show. Thank you both for your time. bodyworxfit.com, Bodyworx Fit on Facebook. You can find Melanie, last name Daly, on Facebook as well. If you look for Grover, if you find the word Grover, that is her husband. It's a real person, and I'm sure
Yes.
being a former
He's
soldier,
real.
enjoy a shout out. But thank you, ladies. You look great. You look great. Thanks for being such a great encouragement and hope and example to others. And we'll look forward to having another conversation really, really soon, because there's a lot more to talk about.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thanks,
Yes,
Mark.
ma'am.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.